I'll never forget the way the lights hit that ballroom. Golden chandeliers sparkling above, laughter echoing across the dance floor, and me clutching a flimsy table card that read, Table 14, right next to the kitchen doors, where the smell of burnt garlic bread mixed with perfume and champagne. My little sister Emily made sure I was placed exactly where no one would miss the joke. The reject table, the one for people like me, 31, single, and apparently pathetic enough to be her punchline. I could hear her laugh, that high-pitched, careful laugh she practiced for her live streams, as she introduced me to a group of her new in-laws. This is my sister Claire, still searching. Maybe someone here can give her advice. The words slid under my skin like tiny blades, and the polite smiles that followed, somehow they stung worse than if they'd laughed out loud. I wanted to vanish. But humiliation has a way of pinning you in place, like everyone's eyes are secretly glued to you, waiting for your next awkward move. My fingers drummed against the linen just to keep me from bolting. My dad sat at the head table, silent as always. My mom, smiling like this was all just lighthearted fun. And me, I felt like I was 13 again, standing at the school dance with no one to claim me. Then it happened. A low voice brushed past my ear, steady, certain. Act like you're with me. I froze. I didn't even turn around at first. I was too stunned, too desperate to believe someone might step in. When I finally looked up, he was already pulling out the chair beside me, sliding in with the kind of confidence that makes the whole room shift. And for the first time that night, I wasn't just the punchline. If you've ever been seated at the reject table of your own family story, if you know the sting of being measured by your relationship status instead of your worth, hit that like button and subscribe, because sometimes karma doesn't wait years. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of a wedding with one whispered sentence that changes everything. I should probably tell you who I am, because nights like this don't happen out of nowhere. My name's Claire Morgan, 31, high school English teacher in a small town just outside Chicago, the kind of woman who spends her days grading essays, quoting Shakespeare to bored teenagers, and pretending she doesn't notice when coworkers whisper about how I still haven't settled down. Growing up, I wasn't the star. That was always Emily, my little sister with the perfect blonde curls and the perfect voice that could charm relatives at every Thanksgiving. Mom called her my sunshine, Dad. Well, Dad just nodded, like he was trying to survive dinner without a fight. I was the quiet one, the one who brought home good grades, held part-time jobs, and blended into the wallpaper so Emily could shine. It wasn't that I wanted the spotlight. I just wanted fairness, a simple acknowledgement that I mattered too. But in my family, silence was cheaper than recognition. And I learned early that if I protested, Mom would tilt her head, give me that tight smile, and say, Claire, don't be dramatic. Be happy for your sister. Translation, your feelings don't count. Fast forward to adulthood, and Emily took her sunshine act to social media. Influencer life suited her perfectly. Perfect makeup tutorials, perfect vacations, perfect fiancé. A corporate guy named Nathan, who looked like he'd been cut straight from a finance magazine. And when they announced their wedding, Mom nearly burst with pride. Finally, a real wedding in this family, she said, like I'd been holding us all back by not rushing into one myself. I tried to laugh it off, tried to remind myself I was content with my work, my students, my hikes on weekends, the stack of novels by my bed. But every family dinner turned into a countdown clock for my singlehood. Have you tried dating apps again? Mom would ask between bites of salad. Emily would smirk, sipping her wine like she was tasting victory. Dad would change the subject, his fork clinking against the plate a little too fast. It wore me down, not because I doubted my worth, but because I was constantly forced to defend it. And weddings, well, weddings became battlefields. Cousins' weddings, friends' weddings, even co-workers. Each event another reminder that in everyone else's eyes, I was unfinished. So when Emily's big day finally arrived, I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach as I zipped up my navy blue dress that morning, as if I was walking into a test I was already set up to fail. The Grand Regent Hotel was breathtaking. Glass chandeliers, champagne fountains, roses everywhere. But under the glamour, I smelled danger. Sure enough, the seating chart confirmed it. Table 14, kitchen doors. A setup so obvious I almost laughed. Almost. The other guests assigned there were Emily's single co-workers, people I barely knew, plus Aunt Margaret, who spent half the night complaining about her arthritis, and the other half reminding me my biological clock was ticking. And every time a waiter swung the kitchen door open, the clatter of dishes and the smell of frying oil washed over us like a cruel reminder. This is where you belong, out of sight, out of mind. I sat there, smiling through it, cheeks aching from the effort. And deep down, I wondered, how did I let myself become the family's punchline? Why had I swallowed my voice for so long? Then my eyes wandered to the head table, where Emily basked in the glow of her big day, Mom beaming beside her. Dad stared at his wine glass, lips pressed tight. And for a second, I caught Nathan's expression, stiff, uneasy, like maybe he noticed the cruelty too, but didn't dare interfere. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about every dinner, every smirk, every time I was told to be happy for your sister. Tonight was the culmination of years of being pushed to the side, and I could either shrink, as I always had, or wait for the chance to stand tall. Little did I know that chance was already walking toward me, in a tailored suit with a voice that would change everything. People think the wedding started at 6. It didn't. It started months ago, on my phone, in my notes app, where I kept a quiet little ledger so I wouldn't feel crazy. June 3rd, $148 for rush tailoring on her rehearsal dress. She forgot her card. July 12th, $312 for emergency rides after her bachelorette. You're the responsible one, Claire. August 1st, $200 deposit Mom asked me to front for the hotel suite because Emily's brand hadn't processed her sponsor payment yet. The numbers stacked up like plates behind those kitchen doors. I told myself I was helping. Family helps, right? What I didn't write down was the part where Emily asked me to be a bridesmaid for symmetry, then unasked me 2 weeks later because the color doesn't flatter you on camera. She said it into a voice memo while testing lipstick shades, like she was reading the weather. I mailed the dress back, tags still on, and told her it was fine. I'd be happier off the stage. That was a lie I fed both of us to keep the peace. I kept showing up anyway. I built her wedding website after work, the one that kept crashing because she wanted a falling petals animation. I fixed it twice. I hand-lettered place cards because your handwriting looks expensive. Funny. My paycheck didn't. And when she sent me a screenshot of the seating chart with a little arrow scribbled, "You here?" Table 14, I stared at that arrow until it blurred. I typed, "Could we swap me to the back of the room? Less traffic by the kitchen." She sent a confetti gif and wrote, "You'll be fine, it's going to be magical." Magical. The word tasted like fondant. Pretty, heavy, impossible to swallow. Even tonight I could feel the frosting of it on my tongue, the champagne fog, the roses sweating perfume, the hum of a rented string quartet. Emily floated from table to table in her mermaid gown while the videographer followed like a shadow, catching her best angles. When she reached the head table, Mom squeezed her hand and tilted her chin. "Smile wider, baby. This is the real." Dad adjusted his cufflinks like he was adjusting the weather. I tried to keep my eyes on the candle at our table. The flame jittered whenever the kitchen door burst open, sending a wave of heat and garlic and clattering pans. It kept reminding me where I belonged, close enough to serve, far enough to be unseen. A waiter leaned down and whispered, "Sorry for the draft." I whispered back, "It's not the door." He didn't ask what I meant. The advice started early. A great aunt I barely knew patted my shoulder and said I should lower my filters on dating apps. A cousin of Nathan's asked if I'd considered freezing eggs like he was offering a hors d'oeuvre. Someone else suggested church groups. Apparently, God keeps a lost and found for single women. I kept smiling, nodding, folding my paper napkin into smaller and smaller squares under the table until my fingertips were dusted with lint. Every smile felt like a splinter I couldn't pull out. At one point, I caught Nathan looking at me. Not the quick, pitying glance I'd come to expect. Something else. Something like recognition. He opened his mouth as if to say hello, then Emily caught his arm and kissed him hard for the camera. The videographer cheered. The string quartet switched to a pop song, like even the violins knew the right time to perform. Mom stopped by my chair on her tour of gracious hostess. "How are you doing, honey?" she asked, without waiting for an answer, eyes already scanning the room. "Mingle a bit. Smile. This is a happy night," I said. "I am smiling." She touched my cheek with two cool fingers and whispered, "Wider." Then she was gone, trailing perfume and urgency. I breathed through it. Inhale, exhale. Count the ways I've been useful. I drove Emily to SAT class when Mom's car broke down. I gave her my prom shoes because hers snapped an hour before pictures. I covered her first month of rent when she moved to the city, and the influencer thing didn't influence yet. I taught her how to write thank you notes, then watched her sign them like autographs. All of that, and still, table 14. I wish I could say I stood up then, that I walked to the head table and asked for a different seat, a different story. But shame makes statues of us. I sat there and practiced breathing while the DJ warmed up his mic and the event planner, Savannah, the one with the clipboard and the smile that never reached her eyes, started her rounds. She passed our table, glanced at my empty ring finger and said, "We'll need you for the bouquet toss later, sweetheart," as if she were assigning me a chore. "Actually," I heard myself say, "I don't do games." My voice came out steady, the way it does in my classroom when I've had enough. Savannah blinked, surprised, then recovered. "It's tradition," she chirped. I thought about all the traditions that managed to keep women in their place and said, "So is breathing." She laughed like I'd told a joke and made a note on her clipboard anyway. The quartet slid into another song. The chandeliers glittered like they were trying to blind me into behaving. I looked down at my phone, at the little ledger I'd kept, the proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. The numbers didn't care about confetti. The numbers were real. Across the room, Emily lifted her glass for a toast, and the room hushed on command. She looked radiant, triumphant, haloed by the kind of light you get when the world decides you deserve it. "To family," she said, voice ringing, "to love." Everyone echoed "to love," like a spell. That's when the DJ cleared his throat and grinned toward our corner. "All my single ladies," he boomed, "come on down to the dance floor." Savannah was already turning, already aiming her clipboard at me like a baton. And before I could decide whether to run or fight, before I could choose anything at all, I felt a presence at my shoulder, a cool shadow in a room of hot lights, and a voice I'd already learned to trust said softly, "Not tonight." The DJ's voice thundered through the ballroom, ricocheting off marble columns. "All my single ladies, come on down!" People clapped like it was a game show. My heart lurched. I wanted to sink beneath the tablecloth, become part of the linen, invisible. Savannah, clipboard queen, was already marching toward me. Her heels clicked like a countdown. "Claire, up you go," she sang, as if humiliating me was a perk of her job. Her manicured hand hovered above my elbow. I said no, I whispered. But whispers don't stand a chance against surround sound. Emily's eyes found me across the room, bright and merciless. She smirked. My own sister smirked, like the bouquet was a weapon and she'd chosen her target. I knew that look. It was the same one she used in middle school when she volunteered me for dodgeball just so she could watch me flinch. The crowd was chanting now, "Go, go, go!" The string quartet had even swapped into some pop parody, violins bouncing like taunts. I stood. Not because I wanted to, because refusing felt like handing Emily victory. But every step toward the dance floor was a funeral march. I could feel people's eyes measuring me, already predicting the outcome. She won't catch it. She'll trip. She'll cry. We gathered in a circle, 20 of us, mostly Emily's college friends with glossy hair and perfect teeth. I was the lone 31-year-old in sensible heels, clutching my dress at the waist so it wouldn't wrinkle. Someone whispered, "She looks nervous," and a ripple of laughter broke across the circle. Emily raised the bouquet, twirling it for the cameras. Her voice rang out, sweet and poisonous. "Ready, girls!" She locked eyes with me and tossed, deliberately, decisively, far in the opposite direction. The bouquet landed in the arms of a 23-year-old cousin I'd met once. The crowd erupted in cheers. Emily squealed, hugging her like she'd just won the lottery. "Looks like Claire will have to wait a little longer," she announced. The microphone caught every word. The room laughed. Not everyone, but enough. The sound scraped down my spine like glass. I forced a smile, clapping politely, though my palms stung. I wanted out of the spotlight, out of the charade. I turned back toward table 14, fighting the pressure in my throat. My phone buzzed in my clutch. Mom's text. "Smile wider. Cameras are on you." As if my role tonight was to decorate humiliation with good posture. I sat down, chest hollow, when the photographer swooped in. "Family photo time," he chirped, holding his lens like a weapon. "Claire +1?" His eyes darted behind me, searching. "I don't have one," I said flatly. He blinked, confused. "Oh, no problem. We can shift you to the side." He gestured like I was a folding chair, movable, replaceable. I swallowed hard as he arranged Emily, Nathan, and the glowing in-laws center stage. Then came the introductions. Emily tugged me toward a cluster of Nathan's relatives, elegant people dripping in designer labels. "This is my sister Claire," she said brightly. "She's our career woman, still waiting for someone special." Laughter, polite but sharp, floated around me. One of Nathan's aunts patted my hand. "Don't worry, sweetheart, there's someone for everyone. Maybe try a prayer circle." Emily laughed along, her arm draped around Nathan's shoulders. She emphasized the word independent, like it was a diagnosis. My chest burned, but my smile stayed welded. The comments poured in, one after another like water torture. "Lower your standards. Don't be too picky. My sister waited too long and fertility issues, you know." Each sentence pressed me deeper into my own skin until I felt like I was shrinking inside my dress. And still, the camera clicked, flash after flash, recording my humiliation for future reels. At some point, Aunt Margaret leaned over with her wine breath and whispered, "Maybe you should start small, dear. Widowers, men with baggage. That's realistic at your age." I excused myself, retreating to the corner near the bar, clutching a glass of sparkling water like a shield. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked older than I remembered, my smile tighter, my shoulders tense. That's when I heard Emily's voice again, amplified, laughing with the wedding planner. "She talks to bartenders more than people, it's kind of her thing." A few heads turned toward me. Heat flooded my face. It was too much. Too loud, too cruel, too familiar. The same script, different stage. I grabbed my clutch, ready to disappear, to slip out the side door before tears betrayed me. But then, just as I rose, my chair scraping against the tile, a shadow fell across the table. A hand, steady, rested on the back of my chair, and that low, calm voice said it again, so close I felt it vibrate in my bones. "Act like you're with me." The words landed like a lifeline. "Act like you're with me." I froze. For a second, I thought I'd imagined it, like my brain had invented a rescue fantasy to keep me from bolting out of the room. But then I felt the chair beside me shift. A tall man in a charcoal gray suit slid into the empty seat as if it had always been his. The scent of his cologne, clean, sharp, something with cedar, cut through the cloying mix of roses and champagne. "Sorry I'm late," he said smoothly, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. His hand rested lightly on the back of my chair, a casual claim. Traffic was a nightmare. I stared. My lips parted, but no sound came out. He glanced at me, eyes steady, and whispered so only I could hear, "Go with it." My pulse hammered in my ears. Every instinct screamed to ask questions. Who are you? Why me? But instead, I nodded, because for the first time that night, someone wasn't laughing at me. Someone was standing with me. Emily noticed almost immediately. She was across the room, mid-conversation with Nathan's cousins, when her gaze snagged on us. Her smile faltered, just a hairline crack, but enough for me to see. She excused herself, gown trailing, eyes narrowing as she approached. "Claire," she sang, voice pitched an octave higher than usual. "You didn't tell me you knew Daniel." Daniel. So that was his name. He didn't miss a beat. "Old friends," he said warmly, his hand brushing mine on the table. "We lost touch for a while. Glad tonight brought us back together." I found my voice, shaky but usable. "You know how private I am, Em. I don't broadcast everything." The irony burned sweet on my tongue, me accused of oversharing nothing, while she live-streamed her life for strangers. Emily's smile thinned. How wonderful. She lingered a beat too long, searching for cracks, then retreated with her head held high. But her shoulders were tight, her composure not as perfect as before. Daniel leaned closer, his tone shifting. "Your sister spent the last 10 minutes telling Nathan's uncle how worried she is about you being alone," he murmured. "You didn't ask her to do that, did you?" My chest clenched. "Of course not." "Thought so." He gave a small nod like he'd confirmed what he already knew. I couldn't sit there and let her keep doing that. So, here I am. I blinked at him, caught between disbelief and gratitude. "Why?" He looked straight ahead, his profile sharp in the chandelier light. "Because I've seen this before. I have a younger sister. She was bullied at her own prom. People laughed at her because she didn't have a date. I swore if I ever saw that same look on someone else's face." He let the sentence hang, unfinished but heavy. The words slipped past my guard. For years I'd carried that look. Humiliation disguised as endurance. And now a stranger was naming it, calling it out like it mattered. The room's energy shifted. Heads turned toward our table, curiosity sparking. Nathan's relatives, the ones who had clucked advice at me earlier, now glanced at Daniel with raised brows, their expressions recalibrating. Who was he? How did he fit? And, most importantly, how had I managed to be sitting next to him? Daniel smiled, calm, collected, like he belonged in any spotlight he chose. "Drink?" he asked, already rising. He returned with 2 glasses of champagne, placing one gently in front of me. His hand lingered just long enough for me to feel steadier than I had all night. For the first time, I noticed my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Not the wilted woman shrinking at table 14, but someone who might, just might, belong. My shoulders eased, my breath evened. I sipped the champagne, the bubbles sharp against my tongue, and realized the balance of power in the room had shifted. Emily no longer held every card, and as Daniel leaned in again, voice low but certain, he said, "She looks like she just bit into a lemon. Let's keep it that way." I laughed, a real laugh, one that startled even me. It sounded foreign and familiar at the same time. For the first time that night, I wasn't just enduring, I was reclaiming. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He angled his chair toward mine like we were already mid-conversation, palm open on the linen, posture saying, "I'm here." The nearest tables noticed first. Polite curiosity lifted into the air like steam. I felt it on my skin, 100 tiny glances softening, recalibrating, asking the same silent question. Who is he to her? He leaned closer, the cedar in his cologne cutting through the roses. Claire, you promised me one dance, he said just loud enough for the couple at the next table to hear. Then he smiled at them, an easy, practiced smile, and the woman smiled back, conspiratorial, as if she'd just been let in on a secret. We had a secret. For the first time all night, that didn't feel like a lie. A waiter passed. Daniel stopped him with a gentle nod. Could we swap this for still water with lime? She's sensitive to sulfites. I blinked. I am. And watched the waiter's face soften with instant respect. Of course, he said. The glass disappeared, replaced by exactly what I would have asked for if I'd remembered how to ask for anything. The ice chimed. My shoulders let go a notch I didn't know I was holding. From across the room, Emily clocked it. You can always tell when an influencer senses a narrative slipping. Her smile stretched brighter. Too bright. Eyes scanning for a camera before she moved. She didn't come over yet. She recalculated. The band shifted into a mid-tempo classic. The chandeliers hummed. Daniel tapped the table in time with the music, a barely there rhythm that coaxed my breath into matching it. Want to walk? He asked, and he didn't wait for my permission to make it easy. He stood and offered his hand, palm up, no pressure. I took it because it felt less like a performance and more like an exit ramp. As we crossed the floor, I heard Aunt Margaret gasp, then whisper to the woman beside her, "Well, that was fast." An uncle in Navy tried to catch Daniel's eye and failed. Nathan's cousins, those same mouths that had shaped freeze your eggs, smiled approvingly as we passed. Their approval didn't burn this time. It meant nothing, and I finally felt that in my bones. At the bar, Daniel ordered 1 sparkling water and 1 ginger ale. For later, he said, sliding the second glass toward me. It helps if nerves crash. I laughed under my breath. Teacher trick? He asked. Survival, I said. He clinked his glass lightly against mine. To survival and upgrades. Upgrades? He glanced at the kitchen doors. Table 14 directly in the splash zone of swinging hinges and hot air. VIP, he deadpanned. Very in the path. The joke slipped out like it had lived in him a while. It landed in me like relief. I laughed for real. Heads turned again, this time to the sound of something uncomplicated and bright coming from the woman who'd been shrinking all night. Emily chose that moment to approach, a comet of satin and curated joy. Claire, she sang, breathless, introduce me properly. She did not look at Daniel. She looked through him, the way people do when they can't place your name but want you to feel the search. I stood a fraction taller. Emily, this is Daniel. Daniel. Emily. Daniel extended his hand and waited. A full beat. 2. Emily let him hold the space, then finally shook it, smile glossy. Old friends, you said? Old enough, Daniel said, mild as milk. We lost touch. Emily's eyes flicked to our joined orbit, down to my hand still holding that ginger ale, back up to his shoulders that said not here for your script. How sweet. She glanced over her shoulder where her videographer hovered. Well, I need you for a quick shot, Claire. Family B-roll. Come stand by the cake. After our dance, Daniel said. Gentle, like a courtesy, not a defiance. But it was defiance, wrapped in manners. He turned to me, offered his hand again. You promised. I let my fingers slide into his. I did. We moved toward the floor before Emily could paste a better line over ours. The band found a slow groove, something classic and a little smug. Daniel's hand settled at my waist with the kind of care that tells a nervous body where it begins and ends. Okay? He asked. It was a private word in a loud room. Okay, I said. My chin lifted. The room came into focus, the sequins, the glass, the tiny bubbles clinging to the sides of flutes. The DJ's smile faltered, just a flicker when he saw me on the floor as anything other than a target for party games. The photographer shifted toward us instinctively, then hesitated. His brief was her, not me. He shot anyway. Somewhere in the corner, I heard Savannah mutter, "Adjust schedule," into her headset. We glided. I'm not a great dancer, but Daniel didn't treat me like a project. He moved like he expected I could, and somehow I did. "You're good at this," I said. "Practice," he said. Also, my sister would kill me if I didn't show up when it mattered. He guided our turn so the head table slid into view. Mom's smile froze, then softened. Dad blinked like he'd just surfaced from a deep pool. Nathan watched, a crease between his brows, a question no camera could ask on his behalf. "You know they'll test us," Daniel said low. "They'll poke to see if this is real." "Let them," I heard myself say. My voice had the steadiness I use when a class tries to push the line. I'm done auditioning for kindness. The words surprised me. They fit. He breathed a quiet laugh, like he'd been waiting to hear exactly that. Comic relief arrived as a waiter tried to cut across the dance floor with a tray of mini crab cakes, misjudged the tempo, and nearly collided with us. Daniel pivoted us cleanly. The tray wobbled, then recovered. "See?" he whispered. "Very in the path." I snorted. The waiter flashed an apologetic thumbs up. We saluted back. For a heartbeat, the ballroom felt human again. An accident, a recovery, a shared grin. Then the temperature dropped. Emily appeared at the edge of the floor with Savannah in tow and that smile. The one I know from childhood photos where I'm just out of frame. "Mind if I cut in?" she asked, bright as glass. The mic wasn't on her, but the room still heard. The string quartet fumbled, then found their place. Daniel didn't flinch. "Actually," he said pleasantly, "we'll just finish this song." Savannah's pen hovered above her clipboard, uncertain. Emily's laugh came out too light. "Come on, Claire, we need you for cake shots. 2 minutes." "I'll come after the song," I said, and it felt like choosing oxygen. Emily's eyes hardened a shade the cameras wouldn't catch. She turned the wattage up for the room. "Family first," she sang like a hymn. Subtext, "Remember your place." Daniel's hand warmed at my waist. His gaze held hers, courteous, unwavering. "Exactly," he said. "Family means respect." The word fell cleanly between us, heavier than it sounded. I watched it land. On Mom, who blinked. On Nathan, whose jaw worked. On a few aunts and uncles who suddenly found the ceiling interesting. A tiny quake under marble floors. We finished the turn. Daniel's breath brushed my temple. "End on your terms," he said. "We step off when you decide." When the song slid into its last bar, I let the final note carry me upright. I didn't rush. I didn't fill the silence with apology. I looked at Emily, really looked, and set the gentlest boundary of my life. "After the next song, Em, I'll be there." The room heard the I more than the plan. They always do. She smiled like she swallowed something bitter. The cameras drank it in. The band swelled. And in the pocket of music between one song and the next, I felt the shift that matters most, not the room's opinion of me, but mine. Across the floor, Nathan stepped forward as if to intervene, then stopped when Emily touched his sleeve. A small, controlling press that said, "Not yet." Daniel caught the gesture too. "She's not used to losing the mic," he murmured. "Neither am I said. "Anymore." My voice didn't shake. My spine remembered me. And as the opening notes of the next track bloomed, Emily took one decisive step in our direction, shoulders squared, smile sharpened, ready to push, which is exactly when Daniel turned, met her halfway and prepared, politely, publicly, to say what no one in my family had ever said out loud. We didn't know it yet, but the room was about to hear the word respect defined. The ballroom had a way of amplifying silence. One moment, the band played a cheerful bridge. The next, as Emily stepped onto the dance floor, the violins thinned to a nervous tremor. Family photo, now. Emily's tone sliced sugar into steel. She looked at me, then at Daniel, then back at the cameras circling like moths. We wouldn't want to keep our guests waiting, would we? Daniel didn't move. He smiled the way corporate lawyers do when they've already won the case. We're not keeping them. We're entertaining them. His hand was still at my waist, light but firm, and the word we floated above the parquet like confetti no one had planned. A murmur ran through the room. I saw Nathan shift, his jaw tightening. Mom dabbed at her forehead with a napkin. Dad reached for his glass and found it empty. The narrative was slipping, and everyone felt it. Emily's smile widened, a glass mask. "Claire," she said brightly, "come along, let's not make a scene." "I think the scene's already made," I said. My voice surprised even me. Calm, level, like the opening line of a lecture when I've caught students cheating. Emily blinked, thrown. "Excuse me?" I inhaled, counted to 3, felt Daniel's steadiness anchoring me. "You sat me at table 14 next to the kitchen door. You told strangers about my love life like it was a party favor. You threw the bouquet the opposite direction on purpose." I let each detail drop, heavy, audible. "So yes, the scene is made. You made it." The ripple spread. Chairs creaked, whispers fluttered, reaction shots everywhere. An aunt's raised brows, an uncle's slow nod, a cousin stifling a gasp. Savannah scribbled furiously on her clipboard as if minutes could control fallout. Emily's cheeks flushed beneath the highlighter. "I was joking." Daniel cut in softly, the perfect foil. "Cruelty dressed as humor is still cruelty." That line hung, ripe for clipping, perfect for a TikTok reel. I knew it the moment it left his lips. So did the photographer who snapped before the room could breathe. Mom stood abruptly, her chair screeching. "Enough!" she hissed, though her voice shook. "Claire, this is Emily's day." "Exactly," I said, "her day, not my humiliation." Dad finally spoke, a rare crack in his long silence. "Janet, maybe let her talk." The room shivered. Even Emily faltered. Dad never chose sides in public. Daniel leaned just slightly closer. "Do you want to finish this dance or step off now?" His eyes held mine. "Your choice," they said, and for once, choice felt real. I turned back to Emily. "You wanted a picture? Fine. But if you're going to archive tonight forever, then archive all of it, not just your highlights, mine too." I lifted my phone. Open, ready, lens pointed not at her but at me, beside Daniel, both of us steady in the glare. The act was tiny, modern, radical, reclaiming the record. A few guests actually clapped. Small, tentative, but claps. Emily's breath hitched, the smile faltered, slipped. "You're ruining everything." "No," I said, steady as chalk on a whiteboard. "I'm ending the part where you get to decide what I am." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It brimmed, with shifted loyalties, with whispered awe, with the weight of a sister's crown tilting for the first time. The band, unsure, filled the gap with a single low chord. The violin quivered. The room didn't breathe. Daniel's hand squeezed mine once, just enough. He spoke not to Emily, not to the cameras, but to the room itself. "Respect," he said again, simple, clean. "It's overdue." And in that suspended moment, between her fury and my breath, the story flipped. The ballroom wasn't built for silence, but it got one anyway, a silence with teeth. Emily's laugh came late, brittle as sugar glass. "Respect?" she echoed, voice high. "Coming from you? Claire, let's not pretend. You've always been—" She stopped herself, but too late. The word "less" hung in the pause. Everyone heard it. Then a voice cut through, not Daniel's this time. It came from the far side of the head table, Nathan's uncle, a silver-haired man who'd been watching like a hawk. "Is that why you put her name on the program as table staff?" Gasps cracked the air. Programs rustled, guests flipping pages, and there it was, printed in black serif font under the seating chart. Table 14. Staff. Claire Morgan. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even looked at the booklet, too busy dodging embarrassment live. Now I saw it through 100 raised copies. The laughter earlier, the bouquet toss, it wasn't spontaneous cruelty. It was scripted, orchestrated. Emily's face drained, then flushed hot. That was a mistake. Printing error. Savannah? The uncle pressed, eyes narrowing. The planner froze mid-clipboard. Her silence was answer enough. A wave rolled across the ballroom, murmurs sharp as broken glass. Some guests glared, others whispered furiously. A few raised their phones. Screens glowed, hashtags formed in real time. I heard one cousin hiss, "Oh my God, she humiliated her own sister on purpose." Daniel leaned toward me, voice steady. "Claire, look." He tilted his chin toward the far end of the hall. A videographer wasn't just recording Emily's highlights anymore. He'd swung his lens fully toward us, red light blinking. "This isn't family only now," Daniel murmured. "This is broadcast." And that was the twist. My private humiliation, already viral before dessert was served. Emily tried to seize control, her influencer instinct sparking. She grabbed a mic from the DJ booth, plastering on a smile. "Everyone, please, don't believe everything you see. Claire has always been sensitive." Her laugh came brittle. "We were teasing, that's all." But the room wasn't buying it. Not with staff printed in ink, not with Savannah still frozen, not with the video rolling. I found my voice, quiet but clear. "You scripted me into being less. You built your perfect day on making me the joke." My hand trembled only once as I lifted the program high for all to see. "And now the joke's yours." Phones lifted like a wave. Clicks, flashes, recordings. The narrative shifted, concrete and public. Emily's mask cracked. "You think anyone cares? You're just—" She bit the word back, but I saw it forming. Nobody. Daniel stepped in, calm as a verdict. "Careful. This isn't just family anymore. Every guest here has a phone. Every clip goes online in seconds. You'll be remembered, Emily, but maybe not how you planned." A collective inhale, the kind that precedes either collapse or explosion. Then, another voice, soft but deadly, my mother's. "Emily," she said, low but cutting, "did you approve this?" She held the program like evidence in court. For once, Emily faltered. "Mom, it was supposed to be funny." "Funny?" Mom's tone sharpened. "You made your sister a prop." She looked around, seeing the judgmental eyes turning toward her now. "You've humiliated us all." Gasps again. My mother, who had always chosen image over me, siding with truth, or maybe just damage control. But still. The tectonic plates shifted under Emily's satin heels. Nathan finally spoke, stepping forward. "Em, did you really—" His voice cracked. Not loyalty, not defense, doubt. That was the moment Emily snapped. "Don't look at me like that, Nathan. You knew. You laughed with me when we planned it." The room imploded. His mother clutched her pearls. "Planned?" she repeated. "You planned this?" Emily's eyes widened. She'd overplayed, said the quiet part out loud. Nathan went pale. "Em." His whisper was shredded by the mic she still clutched. The whole ballroom heard. I stood taller, the program still in my hand. "You both wanted me small enough to make you look bigger." My voice carried, years of teaching projecting past whispers. But small doesn't break. It remembers. And tonight, so will everyone else. Phones caught it. A cheer even broke out from the younger cousins. The wave had turned. Daniel raised his glass. Not a toast, not mockery. A quiet statement. To truth. His voice was steady, and a few guests followed suit, glasses clinking tentative but real. Emily dropped the mic with a thud. The sound echoed, ugly. Nathan tried to pick it up, but the damage was done. Their perfect wedding had just fractured into something else entirely, a public reckoning. The ballroom no longer resembled a wedding, it had become a tribunal. Everywhere I turned, I saw phones raised, red recording lights glowing like 100 unblinking eyes. The glow of screens outshone the chandeliers. Emily clutched the mic so tightly her knuckles went white. "Turn those off," she snapped, her voice pitching higher. "This is private." But from the far side of the hall, Nathan's aunt, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, a lawyer, stood and cut her down with a single line. "When you humiliate someone in writing, in front of 200 witnesses, that's not private, that's evidence." The words slammed into the room like a verdict. Programs rustled as guests flipped through pages, and then the gasp came. There it was, in black serif font under the seating chart. Table 14, staff, Claire Morgan. My breath caught. I hadn't even looked earlier, too busy dodging live humiliation. Now I saw it raised in dozens of hands, printed proof of my demotion, my reduction. The laughter, the bouquet toss. It hadn't been spontaneous cruelty. It had been scripted. Emily's face blanched, then flushed deep red. "That was a printing mistake," she began, but Savannah froze with her clipboard in plain sight, saying nothing. Her silence told the truth louder than words. The murmurs turned into low growls of outrage. Someone whispered, "She humiliated her own sister on purpose," and the phrase spread like smoke. Cameras turned fully toward us. The humiliation I had swallowed all night was no longer a private wound. It was going viral before dessert. Emily tried to grab the narrative back. She plastered on a smile, her influencer instincts firing. "Everyone, please," she laughed thinly. "Don't believe everything you see. Claire has always been sensitive." This was a joke, but the weight of evidence made her words crumble. I stepped forward, holding the program high. "You scripted me into being less," I said, steady and clear. "You built your perfect day on making me the joke." The tremor in my hand didn't last. It hardened into steel. "And now the joke's yours." The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, phones held higher. The tide had shifted. Emily's voice broke into shrillness. "You think anyone cares? You're nothing." She stopped herself, but the word nobody hung like smoke. Daniel slid into the silence, calm and deliberate. "Careful. This isn't just family anymore. 200 people have cameras. Every clip leaves this room in seconds. You'll be remembered, but maybe not how you planned." And then, to my astonishment, my mother rose, program trembling in her hand. Her voice was low but hard. "Emily, did you approve this?" Emily faltered. "Mom, it was supposed to be funny." "Funny?" My mother's tone cracked like a whip. "You made your sister a prop. You've humiliated us all." The shock was seismic. My mother, who had always chosen appearances over me, was siding, at least publicly, with the truth. Nathan finally stepped forward. "Em, did you really?" His voice shook. Emily snapped back, panicked. "Don't look at me like that, Nathan. You knew. You laughed with me when we planned it." The words detonated in the ballroom. She had said the quiet part out loud. Guests recoiled. Nathan's own mother's face twisted in disbelief. My pulse hammered, but my voice was steady. "You both wanted me small enough to make you look bigger, but small doesn't break. Small remembers. And tonight, so will everyone else." Cheers erupted from the younger cousins. Phones captured every second. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a shadow. I was the headline. Daniel raised his glass, not mockingly, but as a marker in time. "To truth," he said simply. The sound of glasses clinking followed, hesitant at first, then stronger. Emily dropped the mic. The thud echoed across marble floors like the closing of a chapter. Nathan tried to pick it up, but the damage was already irreversible. Their perfect wedding had been swallowed whole by something else, a reckoning, broadcast live. The band, desperate, played a few hollow chords. No one listened. I lowered the program slowly, my hand firm now. Tonight wasn't supposed to be about me, I said, but you made it that way, and now the world will decide what it means. The silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was weight. It was consequence. Every eye in that ballroom was waiting for what would happen next. Daniel leaned close. His whisper meant only for me. You're not the joke anymore. You're the story. And across the room, Emily's expression finally shifted from anger to fear. Not fear of me. Fear of the world outside those doors, already watching. The silence pressed down heavier than the chandeliers. All eyes were on me, but for once it didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a stage. Emily's mic lay abandoned on the floor, its echo still humming in my ears. Nathan hadn't picked it up again. My mother's words still hovered, and the crowd's judgment burned hotter than any spotlight. I inhaled slowly, letting the moment stretch. You wanted me small, I said, voice even. Tonight, I'm not. Tonight, I speak. Emily lunged forward, her eyes wild. You don't get to steal this night from me. Daniel moved subtly, stepping between us, not shielding me, just giving me space to stand taller. She's not stealing, he said firmly. She's reclaiming. The room shivered. Even the string quartet, unsure, lowered their bows. I turned fully toward Emily, so no one could mistake this for hesitation. For years I let you decide who I was, the plain one, the leftover, the joke. I let you carve me down so you could shine brighter. I held the program high one last time, the printed words staff catching the light. But this is the line. It's not just cruel, it's over. Gasps. A cousin whispered. She said over. Phones in every direction caught my declaration. Emily trembled, but still clung to the tattered threads of her crown. You'll regret this, Claire. You'll regret turning on your own family. I smiled then. Not cruel, just steady. Family doesn't make you smaller. Family doesn't weaponize your silence. What you built tonight wasn't family. It was theater. And now the curtain's down. The reaction rolled like thunder. Guests whispered, nodded, recorded. Even those who had been silent all night leaned forward, captivated by the flip. Emily's face crumpled, the mask finally breaking. She looked to Nathan for rescue, but he stayed frozen, guilt and fear etched across his jaw. She looked to my mother, but Mom only shook her head. And when she looked back at me, all she found was the reflection of the sister she could no longer control. Her knees gave, literally. The weight of it all dropped her onto the polished floor, satin pooling around her like spilled champagne. The sight froze the ballroom. The influencer bride collapsed not in beauty, but in disgrace. The photographers hesitated, then clicked. They captured not perfection, but truth. For a moment, pity flickered in me. Old habits die hard, but then Daniel's hand found mine, grounding me. Don't let her drag you back, he whispered. You've already won. So I didn't kneel. I didn't console. I didn't fold myself smaller one more time. Instead, I turned to the crowd, my voice sure. Respect is not negotiable. Not in this family, not anywhere. Applause broke. Scattered at first, then swelling. Some stood. The sound washed over me like a tide, fierce and cleansing. Emily sobbed into her satin. Nathan crouched beside her, whispering frantically, but his words didn't matter anymore. The story had left their hands. The band, sensing the shift, played a slow refrain. Not triumphant, not tragic, just final. I set the program down on the head table, no longer mine to carry. I won't be your backdrop anymore, I said softly. but the micless words still reached every ear. I am not staff. I am not a prop. I am your equal. And if you can't see that, then this is where we part. And with that, I walked off the dance floor, Daniel by my side, the cameras following every step. Behind us, Emily's sobs filled the silence. Ahead of us, the doors to the ballroom opened wide. For the first time all night, the air outside felt lighter than the air in. The night after the wedding broke like glass. By morning, the ballroom scandal was everywhere. Clips flooded TikTok. Hashtags climbed Twitter. Naus Table 14, not your staff. Respect is not negotiable. They trended before Emily even removed her wedding gown. Sponsors pulled back first. Brands that had once lined up for Emily's glow posted vague but sharp statements about respect, inclusivity, and values. Contracts evaporated faster than champagne bubbles. The image she had built for years cracked overnight, not from rumor, but from receipts. The printed program, the viral videos, the audible confession. Her silence on socials screamed louder than any post. When she finally issued a shaky apology video, the comments section was merciless. Not an error if you planned it. Family is not content. Respect is not negotiable. The phrase had left my mouth, but it belonged to the public now. Nathan fared no better. His company distanced itself, citing personal matters. But the screenshots of him laughing at Emily's cruel rehearsal jokes were already circulating. The golden couple's crown had turned to ash. And me, for the first time, I wasn't invisible. Reporters reached out, not tabloids, but outlets that wanted to talk about family cruelty, toxic perfection, sisters as shadows. My inbox overflowed. Students sent me messages. Ms. Morgan, you inspired me. You showed we don't have to take humiliation. One even clipped my line and made it their phone wallpaper. Respect is not negotiable. Mom visited me a week later. She sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she didn't drink from. For years, her silence had cut deeper than Emily's words. Now her eyes were damp. I let her run the story. I thought keeping peace mattered more than truth, but peace without respect is poison. I wanted to hate her, to throw decades of quiet wounds back at her feet, but I only said, "Then stop drinking poison." She nodded, a slow, weary motion, and for once, she didn't look past me. She looked at me. Daniel was there, steady as always, not as a savior, not as a shield, but as someone who stood eye level. One evening, as we sat watching the news replay clips of that night, he turned and said softly, "You know, my sister, she would have given anything to have her voice heard like that. You did it for both of you." I hadn't realized I was crying until his thumb brushed away a tear. Weeks passed. Emily stayed silent, retreating into the kind of privacy she once mocked. Nathan vanished into corporate shadows. The family's group chat died. No more passive-aggressive holiday plans, no more wedding bragging. It was quiet, and in that quiet, I could finally breathe. One Sunday, months later, I hosted dinner in my own apartment. Just a few colleagues, a couple of cousins who had clapped loudest that night, and Daniel. The table wasn't lavish. Pasta, a bottle of wine, mismatched plates. But there was laughter, unforced, unfilmed, unbranded. At the end, I stood, raising my glass. "This," I said, looking around at faces that saw me, "is family. Not perfection, not theater, just people who respect each other." The clink of glasses was softer than that thunderous ballroom applause, but it filled me more completely. As the night wound down, I caught my reflection in the window. Just me. No filters, no captions. For years, I'd been cast as the background, the staff, the outsider. Now, for the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to hand me permission to exist. I had taken it, and I would never give it back. Months passed, but the echo of that night never really faded. Sometimes it returned in the smallest ways. A student quoting my line in class, a stranger stopping me at the grocery store with a quiet, "Respect is not negotiable." Even now, whenever I heard the faint buzz of a phone camera, I no longer flinched. I simply looked back. Emily had disappeared from the spotlight. Her accounts were still there, but the streams were gone, the sponsorships cut, the curated perfection shattered. People still whispered about her, half pity, half disdain, but she had become a cautionary tale instead of a queen. Nathan faded too, retreating into the background he once forced me into. For me, life was quieter, simpler, but also freer. I kept teaching. I kept writing. Small essays that found their way online, about dignity, about boundaries, about the things we let slide in the name of family until they bruise us beyond repair. To my surprise, people read them, shared them, commented not just with sympathy, but with recognition. That's me. That's what I went through. One night, sitting by the window with Daniel, I watched the city lights blur against the glass. It still feels strange, I admitted. To have been the joke, and then the story. To be heard when for so long I wasn't. Daniel's hand found mine, warm and certain. "Strange," he said, "but deserved. You didn't just stand up for yourself that night. You stood up for everyone who's been told they don't matter." I thought about that for a long while. Maybe he was right. Maybe it had never really been about Emily or me, but about the thousands of invisible people sitting at their own table 14, in life, overlooked, dismissed, silenced. The truth is, I don't know what happens next. Families don't heal overnight, and wounds this deep leave scars. Maybe one day Emily will call. Maybe one day forgiveness will come. Or maybe it won't. And that's fine. Because forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and respect is not something you beg for. It's something you demand by standing tall. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt no heaviness, just space. The kind of space you only earn when you finally claim your own seat at the table. So I'll leave you with this. What would you do if it were you? If your own family laughed while you were cast as the joke, would you swallow it or stand up and flip the story? Because one thing I've learned is this. The moment you stop apologizing for existing, the world can't help but listen. And maybe, just maybe, that's where respect truly begins.